Welcome back to the Blazor Server In-Depth course. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at file uploads in Blazor Server. Now, this is kind of like the bonus round here. This is a question I get asked a lot, and so I wanted to cover it, but out of the box, Blazor doesn't have an answer for file uploads. But never fear, there are solutions. And in fact, I'm going to show you a solution today that works really well, even though it's just a project that someone created as a temporary workaround while Blazor gets its stuff together and gets ready to have this built in. Okay, so let's go to Visual Studio and start our project. And we'll create a Blazor app. We'll call it Blazor app and file upload demo. We'll make sure all the settings are correct. They are, and then we'll hit create. And that will create for us our Blazor application. So like I said, Blazor is out of the box not able to upload files, but there is a way to do it using a NuGet package. So let's look at a blog post, and I will link this. In fact, let's open up the host.cs.html, and right in the top here, I'm going to link in this blog post. So let's post this here, and I will include that as a link. So this is a blog post by Steve Sanderson. So Steve works at Microsoft on Blazor, and he wrote this post, and it said, hey, we've been meaning to put a file input into Blazor, but we haven't done it yet. And so he wrote something in the meantime, essentially. And he outlines exactly how to use it. Okay, so we're going to walk through this, and we're going to kind of follow this along because it's well written. It shows exactly what you need to do. And there are a few steps that are kind of skipped a little bit. But the cool thing is that if you look here at sample source, it links right to the GitHub repository with that source code. So you can find the source code you're missing. Okay, so in here, there's a samples core, but there's also the server and WebAssembly. You want the server version in order to get some additional things. For example, in the, it might be in the core version, but under www root, there is a styles that will need to bring some things in, specifically the drag drop zone. So just note there's are things you'll bring in from this, but this article is great. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do this last example here. But I think that's probably the one you'll most likely use. It's a drag and drop supported feature. So you can drag a file on here and it will upload, and then you can even read it on the server. So he's got an example. We'll kind of follow similar where it actually reads through the file. So you can actually put it on your page. Okay, so I'm going to drag this off. We're going to follow these steps and walk through how to build a file upload. Now let's put the file upload right on the main page because why not? All right, so welcome to your new app. In fact, right below Hello World, we're going to put our drag and drop. Okay, so to start off with, we need to add a package. All right, so we need to add a NuGet package. So let's right click on dependencies, manage NuGet packages, and in browse, we need to look for Blazor input file. And it's from Steve Sanderson. You will have to check the box that says include pre-release. All right. And what this is, it's only version, in my case, version 0.1.0 preview 2. So it's an early preview, and yet at the same time, it does everything you need it to do pretty much. And so this is pretty much just a kind of a stopgap replacement until Blazor builds something in for us. Okay, so you hit install and accept. And then since we're using Blazor server, we do need to add a line in host.cs.html. We'll put it at the bottom here underneath our script tag. And it is script, and the source equals _ content / Blazor input file / input file.js. and that comes from the NuGet package. So that's what that content is. It's the NuGet package. And that allows us to talk to this input file. All right. So one more piece of setup. We need to go to our imports and we need to add a using statement. Using Blazor input file. All right. It's already in the list. Okay. So now we have our setup. Let's go and do the more advanced case, which is that drag and drop with a nice, drag and drop target and so on. So I'm going to do first is I'm going to grab the CSS that he used. So if you remember back, let's scroll up here and look at the GIF again. It had this nice dotted outline for your drag and drop zone. We want something similar, and so we need that CSS or styling. So go to www.root and then CSS, and in site.css, we're going to apply his CSS. Now I'm going to scroll to the very bottom to do that. It's up to you where you put it. Just note that CSS does apply in order, so I'm going to apply it here. All right? It shouldn't matter either way because we don't have conflicts in our classes. All right, so this creates a drag drop zone class with a hover and input style. Or I'm sorry, for an input of type file. Okay, so that's our drag drop zone. All right, so now let's work on the Razor page. So our Razor page, we're going to start by putting in some code. And in this code section, we're going to have a few pieces of information. I could copy and paste from what Steve has, and if you want to do that, that's fine, but I want to talk through each step along the way instead of copying and pasting. I really don't like copying and pasting because while it does make the video go faster, it doesn't allow you to really grasp everything we're doing, and sometimes it's easy to skip over a really important detail by doing that. So let's start off by typing out the code. Const string default status equals, and his default is drop a text file here to view it or click to choose a file. All right, so this is the default status. All right, and it's a constant. And the reason it's a constant is because it's more memory efficient to have it be a constant string rather than just a string that can change. However, we're going to have another status in just a minute that's different. I'm going to show you that in just a minute. In fact, I'm going to type that line now and come back to the second line. So string status equals default status. Now you may ask yourself, well, why are we doing this? Because it would seem like we could just put this value right where default status is. And you could, but then it'd be hard to reset this back to that text again. And so we create this constant so we can have it be the reset value as well. And we don't just use the default status as the status because the status may change. That's why we're using this as the initial value and any reset value, but we're not using it for all the values. All right, so the status is what we'll show in that box, that outline. Okay, but line 2, const int max file size equals 5 times 1024 times 1024. And what this is a maximum size of 5 megabytes. So any upload, the maximum size we're going to limit it to is 5 megabytes. You could change this if you want. You could make this 15, or you could make it 20, and then make it 20 megabytes. Okay, so this just ensures that you know what the size is. It makes it a little easier to read. There's 5. That's 5 megabytes because we're multiplying it twice by 1024. And that's our max file size. All right. So now we'll need a couple more pieces of information. We're going to need the file name, and we're going to need the file text contents. Because we're going to assume that the files being uploaded are text files. We're going to display them on the page. Now, you don't have to do that if you don't want. You could store it into Azure Blob Storage. You could do a lot of different things once you have the file uploaded. In this case, we're actually going to show the file just to show that we have the file on the server and we can do something with it. All right? So now we're going to have an async task. View file. File list entry. Files. And this is the method that will get fired whenever there is a file uploaded. Okay? So we're going to say var file equals files.first or default. We're just going to accept the first file. Okay? Now if file equals null, then return. Meaning, hey, if there's not actually a file here, then we must have gotten fired by mistake. No problem. Just exit out. Now there is the case, else if file.size, notice we can see the size of a file, is greater than max file size, then status equals string interpolation. We're going to say that's too big. Max file size is max file size bytes. Okay, so that's too big. This is the maximum file size. All right. Now, if it's not too big and it's not null, that leads us to our else. And our else says, let's put a status of loading. Okay, so again, we're changing. Notice here we change the status, which is this right here. We change it here, and we all right. So we're going to read from a stream reader, and this is going to read from our file, and we're going to say file text contents equals await reader dot read to end async. That's going to read our entire text file. We'll say file name equals file dot name. All right, so that's going to change our file text contents and file name. That's these two variables up here. And then after our using statement, which our using statement is going to make sure that we close the stream properly. Then we're going to say status equals default status. Okay, so we're going to change the status back to the default of drop a text file here to view it. Okay, so that's our code. There's not a lot to it. This gets fired when a file or files have been uploaded. Now we're just processing the first or default. We could process every one of these and create a loop here. We're not doing that. So just note that this right here could be changed to be a for each. All right. So up here, we do need to add a way to actually capture our file. So we're going to say div class equals drag drop zone. And then inside here, we're going to have our input file, which is a new type, comes from the NuGet package, input file, and then on change equals view And then we have this pre-section, which is going to format nicely our text contents. That's the actual contents of the file. So this is the code. This, a little bit of CSS, that one line of JavaScript here, and the NuGet package. That's what there is to enable drag and drop file uploading in Blazor. Let's run this and see it. So it's loading up. And I'm going to grab a file from my PC. So now we have this hello world. We have a drag a text file here to view it, or click to choose a file. So we could click to choose a file, and there's our file picker. But I can drag a file on here. So I'm dragging it into the drop spot. I let go of it, and immediately I have the file name and I have the file contents listed in this display. All right. So that's all there is to drag and drop. All right. So it's just that you have this spot here. You drag a file onto it. You get the file being read. Now, you can process multiple files if you want to. This is just processing just one. So you could do multiple here, and you can change the max file size if you want to. Don't go crazy here. If you have massive files being uploaded, that might be an issue. You're going to have to contend with things like timeouts and other things like that. But this is a really fast way of uploading files to your Blazor server from the user. Okay? I would encourage you, if you're going to take files and store them, either have a place on the network to store them, make sure you scan them for viruses, or store them in something like Azure Storage. So if you're going to store in Azure Storage, you would do that right in this section right here. So with that, that's it for this lesson. We've got drag and drop working. There are other options he has on his site for things like multi-upload, where you have just the click dialog. But I thought this was probably the one that'd be most popular and most desired, is that drag and drop or click in order to upload. Okay, so give it a shot, try it out. It is a pre-release NuGet package, but it's open source, so you can actually put it right into your code and treat it as if it's your code, so that if you have any problems with your boss saying we can't use pre-release software, it's really no different than if you wrote the code yourself. So you could actually just drop it in your code directly. Okay, but try it out and kind of get used to working with file uploads in Blazor. All right, once you're done, come on back for the next video.